This is where John A. Latsch was born and where he was buried, the Mississippi River Valley between Minnesota and Wisconsin near Winona, Minnesota. Here, the mighty Mississippi is not only a watery commercial route for commodities traveling from the rich land of the Midwest, but also a mysterious labyrinth of backwaters, sloughs, islands, and sandbars. The Mississippi River still lures the adventurer as it did for hundreds of years as this country expanded westward. It is where John Latsch lived, built a business empire, and where his legacy lives on.
So growing up in Winona, I feel like Latsch is one of those names that everybody just knows, obviously, from like Latch Island across Winona. So I didn't know about this specific location, but I think it's pretty cool that there's multiple places that have the dude's name.
As a child, I remember my folks talking about him as being a benefactor for the city of Winona, a great man, would spend his money freely for wonderful things.
John is a very important person in our community. Certainly we wouldn't have the beautiful landscape that we have now without the gifts that John Latsch gave us.
He donated over 18,000 acres of prime woodlands, waterlands, parklands to the children and generations of Winona.
But John Latsch's legacy was much more than 18,000 acres of land. John Latsch's legacy was an example of a life well lived.
Mr. Latsch, in all the different aspects of his generosity and humanitarian efforts, just really was exactly what this society needs today.
The people like William Laird and John Latsch had a really different idea. They seemed to be really completely, genuinely committed to public land, public space, the public sphere, the public good.
John Latsch has been one of these figures in Winona's history that just fascinates me. I mean, this guy is just somebody that everybody should know a lot more about than they do. John A. Latsch was a man of the Mississippi River and its hills. Each day he would canoe the channel of the winding backwaters or climb the mysterious bluffs that soar over the valley. His lifelong love affair with the Mississippi River began by accident, his father's accident. John Latsch the Sr. and his wife, Anna Buell, were Swiss immigrants who met in Trempealeau County, Wisconsin. They married and settled on a farm in Hungry Valley, now called Latch Valley. There, John A. was born in 1860. John the Sr. joined the Union Army and was with General Sherman on his march to the sea. He returned to the farm after the war, and a daughter, Nettie, was born in 1866. That same year, John the Sr. was hurt in a farming accident and forced to sell the farm. He moved his young family to the growing city of Winona, across the river, where he opened a retail grocery store. The store was at 103 East 2nd Street and housed the young family on the second floor. There, in 1872, another daughter was born, Emma, and in 1873, their last child, Edward, a brother for John, was born. Emma died the same year. By this time, John A. was 13 years old enough to help out in the grocery business downstairs. Little is known about John A.'s education. It is surmised that he attended the local schools while working at the store. A fire destroyed the first Latch grocery store in 1883. The Latch family moved the store to 173 East 2nd Street and built a large brick home on the corner of Kansas and East Wabasha Streets. When John A. was 26, he saw an opportunity to enhance his own and his family's future when the partners of the largest grocery wholesale firm in Winona, G.F. Priest and S.C. White, decided to part ways. White and his sons eked out another year or two on their own, while John A. joined Priest and John Latsch the Sr. was brought in as a stockholder. Priest and Latch firm prospered, and in 1887 moved to the same block on which the first Latch retail store had stood. That same year, the Latch family lost Nettie at age 21. John A. bought out Priest in 1892 and renamed the business Latch & Son, wholesale grocers, importers of teas and foreign fruits. The railroad bridge over the Mississippi at Winona opened in 1891, enhancing Winona's transportation system and the Latch's business. Ed Latch had joined the firm as a billing clerk. In a few years, they outgrew their space and moved the operation across the street, adding more warehousing space in 3 buildings a block west to 114 to 120 East 2nd Street. As the business grew, John Sr. continued his civic and philanthropic activities. He served on the city council and the board of directors of the First National Bank. He and John were well known for their generosity to those in need as the Depression of 1893 extended to the turn of the century, affecting the businesses and agriculture of the Winona area. John A. joined the local Knights of Pythias, the first fraternal order to be chartered by an act of Congress. He embraced their motto wholeheartedly: friendship, charity, benevolence. Perhaps it was the experience of a deep economic depression and his natural tendency toward philanthropy that led John A. Latch to adopt the austere lifestyle for which he was known. There was little about John that would lead one to guess his income. He never married, perhaps another effect of the economic depression, but devoted himself to work, family, community, and the out of doors. When the nation emerged from the Depression, it was into a more mature and stable economy. Latch and Son again prospered. John's mother, Anna Buell, passed away in 1898, and a year later, John Sr. married another Swiss immigrant, a widow, Ursula Rudy, who moved into the big house on East Wabasha Street with John Sr. and his sons. The first decade of the 20th century was a good one for the Latch enterprise. Hard work, intelligence, and being located in Winona, a preeminent transportation hub at the time, with 5 rail lines and a river port, allowed Latch and Son to grow into Wisconsin and Iowa as well as Minnesota. Phenomenal business growth led them to build a new 7-story building at the corner of Center and 2nd Streets, the beginning of the building many Winonans still remember that was raised in 1975. John A. ran for mayor of Winona and served from 1905 to 1907. During that time, he was the driving force behind securing a long-term lease from the Chicago Northwestern Railroad for part of an island across the channel from Winona. He went straight to the chairman of the board of directors to plead Winona's case and came away with the agreement for the land, the eastern part of what is now Latch Island. Even before he had secured the lease, he had plans drawn up for a bathhouse on the property because he was concerned about the number of children drowning, and donated $10,000 for its construction on the side of the island along the backwater called Bathhouse Slough. It was dedicated in 1907 and rented bathing costumes to the public. When the slough silted in from floodwaters, Latch paid to move the bathhouse to the channel side of the island, where the beach was maintained into the 1960s. John Sr.'s health began to fail in early 1909. Dr. William Mayo traveled from Rochester to Winona by special train to treat him, but he succumbed to kidney disease and died on May 17th. Shortly after his father's death, Edward began to experience health problems as well. He became a patient at a cancer sanatorium in Hudson, Wisconsin, operated by Dr. William T. Boyd, but died on November 18th, still in his 30s. At the age of 49, John found himself alone in the world, but for his stepmother, with whom he shared the big red brick house on East Wabasha. He continued to throw himself into his work at Latch & Son, and to relax while exploring the vast waterways of the Mississippi and walking the system of trails in the hills surrounding Winona. The bachelor, so well known for his plain living, he dressed plainly, ate sparingly, and walked everywhere, never having owned an automobile, was not without a sense of fun.
I'm a publisher of the Winona Post, and we actually, in this last Sunday's edition of the Post, we had 2 people that are both over 100 years old that did have experiences with John Latch. One of them remembered him finding her watch. She had lost her watch
And I used to go in the woods all the time. It's the only place we went. Up in the hills. And he came back of us, and he had this, and he wanted to know if anybody belongs to you. Oh my gosh, it was mine. Well, they thought highly of him. You know, he wasn't hurting anybody, and he was always looked nice. You'd see him around town. People would know him. Got to know him. Everybody got. Winona, everybody gets to know everybody that's around town.
According to the Winona Republican Herald, in April of 1916, a near cloudburst filled the street with water from curb to curb, overflowing the sidewalk on both sides of 2nd Street. John Latsch, never without his canoe, dragged it out of the warehouse and began paddling up and down the street. He approached Mrs. V.H. Shelton, who owned a beauty parlor on 2nd, standing in front of her shop, unsure as to how to get home. Latsch offered her a ride, and she quickly accepted. Other ladies and businessmen came out to watch and were soon also passengers in Latch's canoe. John and his canoe were a familiar sight on the river. He was well known to set out on the water after work, sometimes camping out overnight, sleeping in a hammock, or under his overturned canoe. It was on one of those trips, the story goes, that John found himself beached by a sudden rainstorm. As he prepared to pull his canoe up on land along the banks near Whitman, upstream of Winona, an angry farmer and his dog approached and ordered him off the land. Supposedly, this galvanized Latsch to begin buying up land along the river so that other river lovers would be free to stop on banks and sandbars unmolested. One of his gifts is John Latsch State Park, near the area from which the farmer evicted him. He made partnership agreements with the state of Minnesota to buy land in this manner and donate it to the state for recreational use. In all, John Latsch bought and donated over 18,000 acres of land. Among his gifts are also parts of Whitewater State Park, Merrick State Park above Fountain City, Wisconsin, and Perot State Park and Trempealeau Mountain near Trempealeau, Wisconsin. He donated land on Prairie Island for a park and land to expand Bluffside Park. He deeded Agaming Park and Preserve, 1,000 acres of natural habitat. He bought the land that is now Westfield Golf Course, which was before that the Tri-County Fairgrounds. He gave land for town ball fields in both the west end and east end of Winona. He gave 1,000 acres to the Boy Scouts for Game Haven Camp. Finally, in 1915, he deeded his towering buildings on 2nd Street between Main and Center to the city, the proceeds to be used to keep a city forester and maintain the athletic facilities. Latsch and Son paid a substantial rent to the city to remain in the building. To the city of Winona, he gave over 7,000 acres of land along the river from Minneaska to Homer, a distance of nearly 20 miles. In 1934, the U.S. government took much of that bottom land for the construction of the 9-foot channel, with the exception of Winnebago Island and Prairie Island below the 5A dam dike. The John Latsch Memorial Board, established in 1915 by John in memory of his father, received $40,000 in compensation for the land. Not all of Latch's donations were as vast. He was known to donate popcorn balls and oranges to all school children at Christmas, to leave bags of groceries on the porches of those people who were in need, to send tobacco to soldiers during the Great War, and on one occasion gave $1 for each year of her life to a widow turning 90 years old. During the Depression, he allowed the poor to cut firewood on Prairie Island. Perhaps it was the well-known Swiss penchant for precision and economic stability that led Latsch to plan so assiduously for the disposal of his assets. Or it may have been that without heirs of his own or of his siblings, he felt the best use of his fortune was to give it away for the use of the public, to assure that future generations would be able to explore the mysteries of the Mississippi or play a game of stickball with friends the way he had as a young man.
So the significant thing is that Mr. Latsch donated a lot of land to the city of Winona, and not all of that land is within the city. There's land in Rolling Stone Township. There's also land in Wisconsin. So there wasn't just one deed. It wasn't one time that Mr. Latsch donated land. The first deed was from 1915, and that is what we call the main trust deed. And that deed established the John Latsch Memorial Board. You could tell he was a businessman because some of the land that he donated, he reserved the right for 10 or 15 years to cut the lumber or the brush or the willow. The second deed that John donated land to the city established something called the Winona Athletic Board. And so the land is titled to the city of Winona, but managed by the Athletic Board and managed by the John Latsch Memorial Board.
John A. Latsch died in 1934 at the age of 73 of a lingering illness, spending about 3 months in Winona General Hospital. He left his business to 3 of his longtime employees who were charged with keeping the wholesale grocery running for 20 years. At the end of the 20 years, the business was to be sold and the proceeds to be divided. 85% was to go to the Winona General Hospital, 10% to Woodlawn Cemetery, and 5% to the Margaret Simpson Home for the Poor. Latsch's will emphasized that each of the benefiting organizations invests its entire bequest in interest-bearing securities, with the intent of maintaining and improving their operations. The building itself was, of course, owned by the city, and Latsch had hoped that the proceeds of rent or sale from the buildings would be used for upkeep of the recreational land he had given the city over the years. The value of his donations is not known, but the public access to the land is invaluable. At the time of John Latsch's death, his business was worth $500,000, or almost $9 million in today's money. What is known is that while many have given much to the public, no one before or since John A. Latsch has given more to the citizens of the Winona area. How we have cared for those gifts and preserved his love of the outdoors and spirit of philanthropy to the public is to be decided by future generations. In 1921, after yet more gifts of land were given to the city of Winona by John A. Latsch, the editor of the Republican Herald wrote, "These gifts have much value today for the reason that they assure park spaces, playground facilities, and breathing places for the present time. But for coming generations, when the city has become more populous and land has taken on appreciable value, those of that day who have the city's welfare truly at heart will bless John A. Latsch for his forethought and for his matchless generosity." Winona owes much gratitude to this man of vision, to big-hearted, whole-souled John Latsch.
From an early age, the river flowed through him. His companions, the Ojibwe boys, and maybe he looked through their eyes in the backwaters or gliding down the Trempealeau. Maybe they took him up the sacred mountain where he could see the 4 quarters of the world and come to respect the Massasauga. On weekends, he'd take off and solo up the backwaters, observe the red-shouldered hawk, the ancient cottonwood, the eagle's nest, always in conversation with the river. Always that jar of buttermilk and the newspapers he hadn't read. Until that rainy day near Camp Glory, when he was hunkered under his canoe, waiting out a downpour, and a cranky farmer named Shamong, as ugly dispositioned as his name, chased John off his land at shotgun point. John bought that land and pursued the heresy of boundaries. He looked out for his community without fanfare. Mayor for a while, not a joiner, somewhat invisible. People might cross paths with him up in the bluffs. A good Samaritan, though he rarely came face to face with those he helped. An island is named for him, a park, though he would have had it otherwise. A statue of him that he might by now accept. He shunned the limelight. No gated communities back then, but he would not have lived in one. Occupied 2 rooms at a modest house with no apparent social life. Didn't own a car, much less a Stanley steamer. No trophy wife, no wife at all. No, ostentation was not his strong suit. Even his best suit was plain. Never traveled first class because he rarely traveled. He had no heirs, unless you count the rest of us. We can pull off the river anywhere, with no shamangs to rail against us. He took only what he needed, or even less. He gave back and keeps on giving. His gifts are all around us. It was not a tax write-off, nor was it noblesse oblige, because he was one of us. When you step out your door tomorrow, thank him. Stand in your yard at night, breathe in, and thank him.